Let me tell you a truth that can instantly remove a tremendous amount of unnecessary suffering from your life. Most people are not thinking about you. Read that again. Most people are not thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves, their problems, their bills, their fears, their goals, their insecurities, their future, their mistakes, their next move. And yet, every single day, millions of people walk around carrying emotional burdens that were created by one false assumption. They must be thinking about me. That's where the suffering begins. Someone walks past you without saying hello. You assume they're upset with you. Someone doesn't respond to your text message. You assume they're ignoring you. Someone gives you a short answer. You assume they're annoyed. Someone doesn't invite you somewhere. You assume they don't like you. Notice what happened. You didn't react to reality. You reacted to a story. And that's the trap. The human mind hates uncertainty. When information is missing, the mind fills in the blanks. Unfortunately, it usually fills those blanks with fear, not facts. Fear. That's the key. Most emotional pain is not caused by what happened. It is caused by the story you created about what happened. You have a choice. You can believe every story your mind creates, or you can question it. Strong people question it. Weak people automatically believe it. Think about the last time you felt rejected. What actually happened? Not the story. The facts. Maybe someone didn't call you back. That's a fact. But then your mind added something else. They don't respect me. They don't care about me. They don't value me. Those are not facts. Those are interpretations. And interpretations create emotions. The problem is that most people never separate facts from stories. They combine them. Then they suffer from conclusions they invented themselves. This happens every day. A coworker looks serious. You think they're upset with you. A friend cancels plans. You think they don't want to see you. A stranger gives you a strange look. You think they judged you. But what if none of that is true? What if your coworker had a terrible morning? What if your friend was exhausted? What if the stranger wasn't even looking at you? Most people never ask those questions. They immediately make themselves the center of the story. And that is what creates unnecessary suffering. The ego loves making everything personal. The ego wants to believe every event revolves around you. The ego says, they didn't smile because of me. They acted differently because of me. They made that comment because of me. But reality is different. Most people are too busy dealing with their own lives to spend much time thinking about yours. That's not an insult. It's freedom. Because if they are not thinking about you as much as you imagine, then you are free. Free from constant worry. Free from constant self-consciousness. Free from endless overthinking. Think about something for a moment. How much time do you spend thinking about random people you saw last week? Almost none. You're focused on your own life, your own challenges, your own concerns. Well, everyone else is doing the same thing. That's the truth. Most people are starring in their own movie. They are not spending their days analyzing yours. You have a choice. You can keep imagining an audience that doesn't exist. Or you can focus on living your life. Many people never pursue their dreams because they fear judgment. They want to start a business, but they worry what people will think. They want to create content, but they worry what people will say. They want to change careers, but they worry about criticism. Here's the reality. Most people are not paying attention, and the few who are paying attention will quickly return to thinking about themselves. That's human nature. The prison exists largely inside your mind. You imagine everyone watching. You imagine everyone judging. You imagine everyone talking. Meanwhile, most people are trying to figure out their own problems. That's why confidence is so powerful. Confidence is not believing people will approve of you. Confidence is understanding that their approval is not required. You don't need their permission. You don't need their constant attention. You don't need their validation. You don't need their approval. You need your own respect. That's what matters. When you stop assuming everything is about you, something remarkable happens. You become calmer. You stop chasing explanations. You stop obsessing over tiny interactions. You stop wasting emotional energy. And you start focusing on what actually matters. Your growth. Your discipline. Your goals. Your future. It's not about controlling other people. It's about controlling your interpretation. That's the key. The next time someone doesn't respond immediately, pause. The next time someone seems distant, pause. The next time you feel ignored, pause. Ask yourself one question. What evidence do I actually have? Not assumptions. Not emotions. Evidence. Most of the time, you'll discover something surprising. You don't know what they're thinking. And that's okay. You don't need to know. You don't need to create a story. You don't need to invent a problem. You have a choice. Choose facts over assumptions. Choose reality over imagination. Choose peace over unnecessary suffering. Because emotional freedom begins when you stop making yourself the center of every event. Remember this phrase. It is not always about you. Repeat it. It is not always about you. Again. It is not always about you. The moment that lesson becomes part of your thinking, your life changes. You worry less. You react less. You suffer less. And you become stronger. Because strength comes from seeing reality clearly, not from believing every story your mind creates. Most people aren't thinking about you. And that's one of the most liberating truths you will ever learn. You have begun to loosen the grip of unnecessary emotional reactions. But there is another trap waiting for you. Even when people aren't thinking about you, your mind still has a habit of assigning meaning to everything. And that habit can steal your peace just as quickly. You understand that not everything is about you. Now it's time to learn that not everything means something. One of the biggest reasons people suffer is not because life is difficult. It is because they assign meaning to everything. A delayed text becomes rejection. A serious facial expression becomes criticism. A canceled plan becomes proof that someone doesn't care. The event happens, and then the mind immediately creates a story. That's the problem. Life gives you an event. Your mind gives it a story. Then you react to the story, not the event. That's the key. Imagine a friend doesn't answer your message. That's a fact. But your mind quickly adds meaning. They're ignoring me. They're upset with me. They don't value me. None of those things are facts. They are interpretations. Most emotional pain comes from interpretation, not reality. The human brain hates uncertainty. It wants answers, even when it doesn't have enough information. So it fills in the blanks. Unfortunately, those blanks are usually filled with fear, insecurity, and assumptions. You have a choice. You can believe every story your mind creates, or you can question it. Strong people question their assumptions. Weak people automatically believe them. Think about how many times you've worried about something that later turned out to be completely false. The suffering felt real, but the story was not. That's what happens when you assign meaning too quickly. The meaning you give an event determines the emotion you feel. If you assign a negative meaning, you feel hurt. If you assign a threatening meaning, you feel anxious. If you assign a hopeful meaning, you feel motivated. The event didn't create the emotion. Your interpretation did. That's the key. A powerful person asks, what else could this mean? A reactive person assumes the worst. Someone cancels plans. Maybe they are tired. Maybe they are busy. Maybe something unexpected happened. But if you immediately decide it means rejection, you create pain that may have no basis in reality. It's not about intelligence. It's about discipline. It's not about knowing more. It's about assuming less. One of the most powerful habits you can develop is learning to leave events alone. Let them exist without immediately labeling them. Give yourself time before creating a conclusion. The next time something bothers you, ask yourself, what are the facts? For example, they didn't answer my text. That's a fact. They're ignoring me. That's a story. They don't care about me. That's a story. They hate me. That's a story. Strong people live in facts. Weak people live in stories. Another dangerous habit is personalization. People often assume everything is about them. Someone is quiet, and they think it's because of them. Someone seems distracted, and they assume they did something wrong. But most of the time, people are dealing with their own problems, fears, and responsibilities. Their behavior has very little to do with you. That's why emotional maturity begins with accepting uncertainty. You don't always know what something means. You don't always know what someone is thinking. And that's okay. You don't need an immediate explanation for everything. You have a choice. Choose patience over assumptions. Choose observation over reaction. Choose reality over imagination. Most people spend years exhausting themselves by constantly interpreting every event. They create emotional storms from ordinary situations. They suffer from problems that don't even exist. Meanwhile, emotionally strong people conserve their energy. They don't rush to conclusions. They don't create stories before they have evidence. They don't react to assumptions. That's the key. Not everything means something. Sometimes a delayed response is just a delayed response. Sometimes silence is just silence. Sometimes a bad mood is just a bad mood. Sometimes an event is simply an event. Nothing more, nothing less. Freedom begins when you stop turning ordinary moments into emotional emergencies. Freedom begins when you stop demanding explanations for everything. Freedom begins when you stop creating stories where none exist. Remember this phrase. An event is an event until you give it meaning. Repeat it. An event is an event until you give it meaning. Every day your mind is interpreting reality. Every day you decide whether those interpretations will create peace or pain. You have a choice. Choose facts over stories. Choose discipline over assumptions. Choose peace over unnecessary suffering. Because the moment you stop assigning meaning to everything is the moment you begin taking control of your emotions. And emotional control is freedom. You now understand that not every event carries a hidden message about your worth. But there is another trap that keeps people emotionally stuck, believing that rejection means they are not enough. It doesn't. Now it's time to learn why every rejection contains a different opportunity. Most people fear rejection more than failure.
Think about that.
They fear hearing no. They fear being ignored. They fear being turned down. They fear not being chosen. And because of that fear, they stop themselves before life ever gets the chance to reject them. They never apply. They never ask. They never start. They never try. And that is the greatest rejection of all. Rejecting yourself. Here's the truth. Rejection is not the end of your story. Rejection is information. Rejection is feedback. Rejection is redirection. That's the key. The problem is not rejection itself. The problem is the meaning people attach to rejection. Someone says no, and immediately the mind says, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not attractive enough. I'm not worthy. But where is the evidence? A single outcome does not define your value. A single person's opinion does not define your future. A single rejection does not define your identity. You have a choice. You can treat rejection as proof that you should quit. Or you can treat rejection as guidance that helps you grow. Strong people choose growth. Weak people choose excuses. Every successful person you admire has been rejected. Rejected by employers. Rejected by customers. Rejected by investors. Rejected by audiences. Rejected by people who could not see their potential. The difference is simple. They did not stop. That's the key. Most people think successful people are fearless. They're wrong. Successful people feel rejection. They simply refuse to worship it. They refuse to make it bigger than it is. They refuse to let temporary outcomes control permanent decisions. Imagine a door closes in your face. Most people sit in front of the closed door, asking why. Why didn't they choose me? Why wasn't I enough? Why did this happen? Months pass. Sometimes years. Still sitting there. Still analyzing. Still suffering. Meanwhile, disciplined people do something different. They move. They look for another door. They create a new opportunity. They adapt. They grow. Because they understand something powerful. A closed door is often protection. A closed door is often direction. A closed door is often preparation. What feels like a setback today may become one of the greatest blessings of your life. But you'll never know if you quit. You have a choice. Stay bitter or become better. That's the key. Many people spend years carrying the emotional weight of rejection. A failed relationship. A lost opportunity. A business that didn't work. A dream that collapsed. And they keep replaying it. Again and again. But replaying rejection does not change the outcome. It only steals your future. At some point, you must stop asking why it happened. And start asking, what can this teach me? That question changes everything. Because now rejection becomes a teacher. Instead of a prison. Maybe you need more skill. Maybe you need more patience. Maybe you need better timing. Maybe you simply need a different path. Whatever the lesson is, find it, learn it, use it, then move forward. It's not about rejection. It's about resilience. That's the key. Resilient people understand that life is a process of adjustment. They don't expect every opportunity to work out. They don't expect every person to stay. They don't expect every effort to succeed immediately. They expect obstacles. And because they expect them, they are not destroyed by them. When rejection arrives, they remain calm. They remain focused. They remain moving. That is emotional strength. Another mistake people make is believing that rejection is personal. Most of the time, it isn't. A company may reject your application because another candidate was a better fit. A client may choose another provider because of budget. A relationship may end because two people want different things. Not every rejection is a statement about your worth. Sometimes it's simply a mismatch. That's the key. Not every closed door means you're inadequate. Sometimes it means the door wasn't yours. And that's okay. You don't need everyone's approval. You don't need everyone's acceptance. You don't need everyone's validation. You don't need their permission. You need persistence. You need discipline. You need belief in your ability to keep moving. Because life rewards those who continue, not those who complain, not those who surrender, not those who make rejection their identity. Think about how much freedom comes from this perspective. Instead of saying, I was rejected, say, I was redirected. One mindset creates weakness. The other creates power. One keeps you stuck. The other keeps you moving. That's the key. From today forward, every rejection should trigger a new question. Not why me, but what's next? Ask it every time. Didn't get the opportunity? What's next? Didn't get the promotion? What's next? Didn't get the relationship? What's next? Didn't get the result? What's next? Forward movement is power. Forward movement is confidence. Forward movement is healing. The people who win in life are not the people who avoid rejection. They are the people who outlast it. They keep showing up. They keep learning. They keep adapting. And eventually, life rewards their persistence. Remember this phrase. Rejection is not your destination. It is your direction. Repeat it. Rejection is not your destination. It is your direction. Every rejection contains information. Every setback contains a lesson. Every closed door points somewhere else. Your job is not to take rejection personally. Your job is to use it. Learn from it. Grow from it. Move because of it. You have a choice. You can allow rejection to become a wound. Or you can allow it to become wisdom. The strongest people choose wisdom. And that is why they continue moving while others remain stuck in the past. You now understand that rejection is not evidence of your inadequacy. It is often life pushing you towards something better, something stronger, something more aligned with your path. But there is another trap that keeps people emotionally dependent on others. The endless need for approval. The belief that your value increases when people praise you and decreases when they don't. That belief quietly controls millions of lives. And it's time to break it. One of the most important truths you can accept is this. The world does not owe you validation. It does not owe you praise, approval, recognition, or applause. Most people spend their lives chasing these things without realizing it. They want to be liked. They want to be accepted. They want everyone to agree with them. Their confidence rises when people praise them and falls when people criticize them. That is not confidence. That is dependence. That's the key. When your self-worth depends on other people's opinions, you give away your power. A compliment makes you feel valuable. A criticism makes you feel inadequate. Your emotional state becomes controlled by forces outside your control. You have a choice. You can continue seeking approval from others, or you can build self-respect. Validation comes from outside. Self-respect comes from inside. Validation is temporary. Self-respect lasts. Validation can disappear. Self-respect stays because you earn it through your actions. Many people mistake attention for value. They believe popularity means importance. They think being noticed means they matter more. But attention is not value. Popularity is not character. Public approval is not self-worth. People's opinions change constantly. Someone who supports you today may criticize you tomorrow. If your confidence depends on public approval, your confidence will always be unstable. That's why strong people stop trying to please everyone. They understand a simple truth. No matter what you do, someone will disagree. Someone will judge. Someone will criticize. Someone will misunderstand. Trying to avoid criticism is impossible. Trying to please everyone is exhausting. You don't need their permission. You don't need everyone to approve of your choices. You don't need everyone to support your goals. You don't need everyone to understand your vision. What you need is clarity. Clarity about who you are. Clarity about your values. Clarity about what matters most. That's real confidence. Real confidence is not believing everyone will like you. Real confidence is knowing you'll be fine even if they don't. Many people fear criticism because criticism threatens their need for approval. But criticism is part of growth. Every leader faces criticism. Every creator faces criticism. Every entrepreneur faces criticism. If criticism automatically meant you were wrong, no successful person would exist. That's the key. It's not about approval. It's about discipline. Discipline means continuing your path even when people disagree with you. Discipline means working hard even when nobody notices. Discipline means staying committed even when there is no applause. Strong people do not depend on praise to keep moving. They depend on purpose. They depend on commitment. They depend on self-respect. Ask yourself this question. If nobody praised me for this, would I still do it? Would you still work hard? Would you still improve yourself? Would you still pursue your goals? Would you still do the right thing? If the answer is yes, you're building character. If the answer is no, you're depending on validation. And validation is a trap because it is never enough. One compliment creates the desire for another. One achievement creates the desire for more recognition. One moment of approval creates the need for additional reassurance. The cycle never ends. That's why some people achieve success and still feel insecure. They collected praise, but never built self-respect. They earned approval, but never learned to trust themselves. And without self-respect, no amount of validation will ever feel sufficient. You have a choice. Continue chasing approval or start earning your own respect. How do you earn self-respect? You keep promises to yourself. You follow through on commitments. You act according to your values. You do what you said you would do. That's the key. Self-respect is earned through action. Every time you choose discipline over excuses, you strengthen your confidence. Every time you keep your word, you build trust in yourself. Every time you take responsibility for your life, you increase your self-respect. Over time, something changes. You stop needing constant reassurance. You stop worrying about every opinion. You stop seeking approval from everyone around you. Because your confidence now comes from evidence. Evidence that you can trust yourself. Evidence that you can rely on yourself. Evidence that you can handle challenges without needing constant encouragement. This is real confidence. Not arrogance. Not ego. Not superiority. Just quiet certainty. The certainty that comes from knowing who you are and what you stand for. Remember this. The world does not owe you validation. People are not required to support your dreams. People are not required to understand your journey. People are not required to approve of your decisions. And that's okay. Your purpose is not to gain approval from everyone. Your purpose is to become the strongest version of yourself. Whether people support you or not. Whether people understand you or not. Whether people applaud you or not. You don't need their permission. You don't need permission to grow. You don't need permission to improve. You don't need permission to pursue your goals. The moment you stop asking the world to confirm your worth, you begin creating your own. That's the key. Your value does not increase when people praise you, and it does not decrease when they criticize you. Your worth is determined by your character, your discipline, and your actions. The strongest people understand this. They stop chasing validation. They start building self-respect. They stop seeking approval. They start trusting themselves. And that is where true emotional freedom begins. You are learning to separate your value from other people's reactions. But there is another lesson you must master. Even when you stop seeking validation, you can still be trapped if you believe other people's opinions define who you are. It is so dangerous. You begin living inside someone else's expectations. You stop taking risks. You stop pursuing goals. You stop expressing yourself honestly. All because you're trying to avoid judgment. But judgment is unavoidable. No matter what you do, someone will have an opinion. If you succeed, someone will criticize you. If you fail, someone will criticize you. If you stay quiet, someone will judge you. If you speak up, someone will judge you. You cannot escape opinions. So stop organizing your life around them. That's the key. It's not about approval. It's about discipline. The discipline to keep moving forward, regardless of what people think. The discipline to trust your vision, even when others don't understand it. The discipline to stay committed when criticism appears. Most people spend too much time trying to control what others think. That is impossible. You cannot control another person's perception. You cannot control another person's assumptions. You cannot control another person's judgment. But you can control your response. You have a choice. Focus on what you control. Ignore what you don't. That's emotional strength. Imagine carrying a backpack filled with rocks. Each rock represents an opinion. One person says you're not smart enough. Another says you're too ambitious. Another says you're unrealistic. Another says you're not capable. Now imagine carrying those rocks for years. Eventually the weight becomes unbearable. Most people are exhausted because they're carrying opinions that don't belong to them. Put them down. You don't need to carry them. You don't need their permission. You don't need their approval. And you certainly don't need their labels. One of the strongest habits you can develop is separating feedback from identity. Feedback can be useful. Identity is permanent. If someone says your presentation needs improvement, that's feedback. If you conclude that you're a failure, that's identity. If someone criticizes a skill, improve the skill. But don't attack yourself. That's the key. A mistake is an event. It is not a definition. A criticism is information. It is not your identity. Strong people learn from feedback without becoming emotionally attached to it. Weak people personalize everything. Don't make that mistake. Remember this. What people think about you is not who you are. Who you are is determined by your actions, values, and character. Not by opinions. Not by rumors. Not by assumptions. Not by labels. The most successful people in the world understood this lesson early. If they had listened to every critic, they would have quit. If they had accepted every negative opinion, they would never have achieved anything meaningful. Instead, they kept moving. Not because everyone believed in them, because they believed in themselves. That's the key. Self-belief is stronger than public opinion. And self-respect is stronger than external validation. When you stop allowing opinions to define you, something incredible happens. You become free. Free to grow. Free to fail. Free to learn. Free to take risks. Free to become who you were meant to be. Without constantly looking over your shoulder for approval. Without constantly seeking acceptance. Without constantly worrying about judgment. You have a choice. You can spend your life trying to manage other people's opinions. Or you can spend your life building your own character. Choose character. Character lasts. Opinions change. Character remains. Remember this phrase. Other people's opinions are not your identity. Repeat it. Other people's opinions are not your identity. Again. Other people's opinions are not your identity. The moment you truly understand this, you stop taking criticism personally. You stop allowing labels to control you. You stop letting judgment determine your direction. And that is where real confidence begins. You are learning to detach from approval, criticism, and judgment. But there is another habit that keeps people emotionally trapped. The need to constantly explain and defend themselves. And that habit quietly destroys personal power. It's time to break it. Many successful people learned this lesson early. The more visible you become, the more opinions people will have. The more ambitious you become, the more criticism you'll receive. The more successful you become, the more people will misunderstand your intentions. If you spend your life responding to every opinion, you'll never have time to achieve anything meaningful. That's why disciplined people focus on actions, not explanations. They let their character speak. They let consistency speak. They let results speak. You don't need their permission. You don't need everyone to understand your vision. You don't need everyone to approve your choices. You don't need everyone to validate your path. Your responsibility is not to convince the world. Your responsibility is to stay true to your purpose. That's the key. One of the strongest phrases you can learn is this: I don't need to explain myself. Not because you're arrogant. Not because you're rude. But because you understand your value isn't dependent on public agreement. Too many people mistake over-explaining for communication. They are not the same thing. Communication is clarity. Over-explaining is insecurity. Communication informs. Over-explaining seeks approval. That's the key. The next time you feel the urge to defend yourself, pause. Ask yourself, am I explaining to inform, or am I explaining to be accepted? The answer matters. If you're seeking acceptance, stop. You're giving away your power. Remember this. People are allowed to disagree with you. People are allowed to misunderstand you. People are allowed to have opinions. And you are allowed to keep moving forward anyway. That is confidence. That is freedom. That is emotional strength. It's not about proving. It's about discipline. Discipline means staying focused on what matters. Discipline means refusing to be distracted by every criticism. Discipline means refusing to fight battles that don't improve your life. Most arguments are not worth winning. Most debates are not worth having. Most misunderstandings are not worth fixing. The energy required to constantly defend yourself is energy that could be invested somewhere else. In your goals, in your growth, in your future. Strong people understand this. Weak people keep arguing. Strong people keep building. That's the difference. Imagine two individuals. One spends years defending every criticism. The other spends years improving their life. Who wins? The answer is obvious. Results always speak louder than explanations. That's the key. Your success will explain things that your words never can. Your discipline will explain things that arguments never can. Your actions will explain things that endless conversations never can. So stop proving. Start doing. Stop defending. Start building. Stop arguing. Start growing. You have a choice. Every day you can either invest energy into defending yourself or improving yourself. Choose improvement, because improvement creates confidence, and confidence eliminates the need for constant defense. Remember this phrase. Not every accusation deserves a defense. Repeat it. Not every accusation deserves a defense. Again. Not every accusation deserves a defense. The strongest people are not the loudest. They are not the most argumentative. They are not the most defensive. They are the most focused. Focused on growth. Focused on purpose. Focused on what they can control. And that focus protects their peace. You are learning that emotional freedom comes from letting go of what you cannot control. You cannot control opinions. You cannot control criticism. And you cannot control whether people understand you. But you can control your response. And sometimes the strongest response is silence. Because silence reveals something important. It reveals where your emotional triggers still exist. And that is the lesson of the next chapter. Most people think their triggers are the problem. They're wrong. Your triggers are not the problem. Your triggers are the teachers. That's the key. Every strong emotional reaction contains information. Every moment of anger. Every moment of jealousy. Every moment of insecurity. Every moment of defensiveness. Every moment that instantly steals your peace. There is a lesson hidden inside it. The question is simple. Will you learn from it? Or will you keep running from it? You have a choice. Most people spend their lives blaming others for how they feel. They say, he made me angry. She made me insecure. They upset me. They ruined my day. But that's not completely true. Other people may trigger an emotion, but they did not create it. The trigger exposed something that was already there. That's the key. Imagine someone criticizes your work. One person shrugs and moves on. Another person becomes angry for days. Why? The criticism was the same. The difference was the trigger. The criticism touched an insecurity that already existed. It exposed a wound that had not fully healed. And instead of learning from the experience, many people attack the messenger. They blame the critic. They blame the situation. They blame everyone except themselves. But growth begins when you stop asking, "Why did they do that?" and start asking, "Why did this affect me so much?" That's where transformation begins. Strong people study their reactions. Weak people justify them. Strong people become curious. Weak people become defensive. That's the difference. Every trigger points toward an area that needs attention. If criticism destroys your confidence, perhaps you rely too heavily on approval. If someone else's success makes you jealous, perhaps you are neglecting your own goals. If rejection completely crushes you, perhaps your self-worth is tied to external validation. The trigger is showing you something. Pay attention. That's the key. Most people try to eliminate discomfort. Strong people learn from discomfort. Because discomfort is often a signal that growth is needed, a signal that healing is needed, a signal that a lesson has not yet been learned. Think about physical exercise. When you train a muscle, discomfort appears. The discomfort is not the enemy. The discomfort is evidence that growth is happening. The same principle applies emotionally. Emotional discomfort often points directly toward the next level of personal development. You have a choice. Avoid the lesson or learn it. One path creates temporary comfort. The other creates lasting strength. That's the key. Here's a simple exercise. The next time something triggers you, stop. Don't react immediately. Don't defend yourself. Don't attack. Pause and ask, "What exactly am I feeling?" Then ask, "Why am I feeling it?" Keep asking until you reach the truth. Maybe the anger is actually fear. Maybe the jealousy is actually dissatisfaction. Maybe the defensiveness is actually insecurity. Maybe the frustration is actually disappointment. Go deeper. Most people never do. That's why they repeat the same emotional patterns for years. The lesson keeps returning because it has not been learned. Life is patient. The lesson will keep appearing until you understand it. Different people, different situations, same trigger, same reaction, same lesson, over and over again, until you grow. That's the key. One of the biggest emotional traps is believing that being triggered means someone else is wrong. Not always. Sometimes they are wrong. Sometimes they are unfair. Sometimes they are rude. But even then, your reaction still belongs to you. Your response is your responsibility. That's emotional maturity. It's not about blaming yourself. It's about empowering yourself. Because if your reactions belong to you, then your growth belongs to you as well. And that's good news. It means you are not powerless. You have a choice. You can become a victim of your triggers, or you can become a student of them. Students grow. Victims stay stuck. That's the difference. Another important truth. The things that trigger you often reveal what you value. If dishonesty triggers you, perhaps you deeply value integrity. If disrespect triggers you, perhaps you deeply value dignity. If laziness triggers you, perhaps you deeply value discipline. Not every trigger is a weakness. Some triggers reveal principles that matter to you. The key is learning the difference. That's emotional intelligence. It's not about suppressing emotions. It's about understanding them. It's not about pretending you don't feel anything. It's about learning why you feel what you feel. That's the key. The strongest people are not emotionless. They are self-aware. They notice their reactions. They examine them. They learn from them. Then they respond with intention instead of impulse. That's real strength. Remember this. Your triggers are mirrors. They reflect what still needs healing. They reflect what still needs growth. They reflect what still needs attention. Instead of fearing the reflection, study it. Instead of fighting the lesson, learn it. Instead of blaming the trigger, understand it. Because every trigger contains an opportunity to become wiser, an opportunity to become stronger, an opportunity to become more emotionally free. You don't need their permission. You don't need other people to change first. You don't need perfect circumstances. Your growth begins the moment you take responsibility for your reactions. That's the key. Remember this phrase. What triggers you teaches you. Repeat it. What triggers you teaches you. Again. What triggers you teaches you. The people who master this lesson stop being controlled by every emotion. They stop reacting automatically. They stop giving away their power. Instead, they become observers of their own minds. And observers always have more control than reactors. You are learning that emotional freedom does not come from controlling the world around you. It comes from understanding the world within you. And once you understand your triggers, you gain the ability to choose your response. That ability changes everything. Because emotional control is one of the greatest superpowers a person can develop. And that is exactly what we will explore next. Most people believe power comes from money. Others believe power comes from status. Some believe power comes from influence. They're all missing something. The greatest power is control over yourself. That's the key. When someone can control your emotions, they control you. Think about that. If a stranger's opinion ruins your day, they control you. If criticism destroys your confidence, it controls you. If rejection stops your progress, it controls you. If anger dictates your actions, it controls you. The person with the most control is not the person who controls others. The person with the most control is the one who controls themselves. That is real power. That is emotional mastery. And emotional mastery is a superpower. Why? Because most people don't have it. Most people react. They don't choose. They don't pause. They don't think. Something happens. Then they immediately respond. Someone insults them. They explode. Someone criticizes them. They become defensive. Someone disappoints them. They lose control. Their emotions drive their behavior. Their behavior creates consequences. Then they wonder why their lives feel chaotic. That's the key. Reaction is easy. Control is rare. Anyone can lose their temper. Anyone can panic. Anyone can complain. Anyone can blame. But it takes discipline to remain calm. It takes strength to remain focused. It takes maturity to choose your response. You have a choice. Always. You may not control what happens, but you control what happens next. That is where your power lives. Most people give away this power every single day. They allow circumstances to determine their mood. If things go well, they're happy. If things go poorly, they're miserable. Their emotional state changes with every event, every opinion, every setback, every inconvenience. They're constantly being pushed around by life. Strong people operate differently. They understand that circumstances are temporary. Emotions are temporary. Situations are temporary. But character is permanent. That's the key. Character allows you to remain steady while everything around you changes. Imagine two people facing the same challenge. One person immediately panics. The other remains calm. The challenge is identical. The difference is emotional control. One person becomes controlled by the problem. The other person focuses on solving it. Which person is more likely to succeed? The answer is obvious. Calm minds make better decisions. Emotional minds make expensive mistakes. That's why emotional control is not just about feelings. It's about performance. It's about leadership. It's about success. It's about becoming someone who can be trusted under pressure. The strongest people in the room are rarely the loudest. They are rarely the most emotional. They are rarely the most reactive. The strongest people are usually the calmest. Because calmness creates clarity. And clarity creates power. That's the key. Many people believe emotional control means suppressing emotions. That's not true. Emotional control does not mean pretending you don't feel anger. It means refusing to let anger control your actions. It does not mean pretending you don't feel fear. It means refusing to let fear make your decisions. It does not mean pretending you don't feel disappointment. It means refusing to let disappointment stop your progress. There is a difference. A huge difference. Strong people feel everything. They simply don't obey every emotion. That's emotional discipline. It's not about emotion. It's about control. Remember that. One practical habit can change your life. Pause before responding. Pause before reacting. Pause before speaking. Pause before sending the message. Pause before making the decision. That pause is powerful, because inside that pause lives freedom. Most people never use it. They react instantly. Then they regret it later. The angry text, the emotional decision, the impulsive reaction, the unnecessary argument. All of it could have been avoided with a pause. You have a choice. React immediately or respond intentionally. That's the key. The longer you practice emotional control, the stronger you become. Not physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You become harder to manipulate, harder to provoke, harder to distract, because your emotions are no longer controlled by external events. They are guided by internal discipline. And discipline always beats emotion in the long run. It's not about feelings. It's about discipline.
Repeat that.
It's not about feelings. It's about discipline. The disciplined person gets up when they don't feel like it. The disciplined person stays focused when distractions appear. The disciplined person remains calm when chaos arrives. The disciplined person wins because they are not controlled by temporary emotions. That's real strength. That's real confidence. That's real power. Remember this phrase. If you can control your emotions, you can control your life. Repeat it. If you can control your emotions, you can control your life. Every major mistake you've made likely began with a moment of emotional weakness. Every major breakthrough you've achieved likely required emotional discipline. That is not a coincidence. Your emotional habits create your future. Choose them carefully, because every day presents a decision. Will you react? Or will you respond? Will you surrender control?
Or will you keep it?
You have a choice. And that choice determines everything. The people who master their emotions eventually master their lives. They stop taking things personally. They stop reacting to every opinion. They stop giving away their power. And they become nearly impossible to disturb. That is the superpower. That is emotional control. And once you develop it, something remarkable happens. Silence becomes easier. Patience becomes easier. Confidence becomes easier. Because you no longer need to react to everything around you. And that leads us to one of the most overlooked forms of strength in the modern world. The ability to stay silent. One of the most exhausting habits in life is the need to be understood by everyone. To explain yourself. To justify yourself. To make sure everyone sees your intentions correctly. To make sure nobody misunderstands you. To make sure everyone agrees with your choices. And that need creates endless frustration. Because it is impossible. That's the key. Not everyone will understand you. Not everyone will understand your goals. Not everyone will understand your growth. Not everyone will understand your decisions. And they don't have to. Many people spend years trying to convince others that they are right. Trying to explain their dreams. Trying to explain their boundaries. Trying to explain their changes. Trying to explain who they are becoming. But the harder they try, the more frustrated they become.
Why?
Because understanding cannot be forced. You cannot force someone to see what they are unwilling to see. You cannot force someone to understand what they are unwilling to understand. You cannot force someone to accept what they have already decided to reject. That's the key. The need to be understood is often a hidden form of validation seeking. Think about it. Why does it bother you when someone misunderstands you? Why do you feel compelled to explain yourself repeatedly? Why do you feel uncomfortable when someone disagrees with your choices? Because part of you wants their approval. Part of you wants their agreement. Part of you wants their understanding. But emotional freedom begins when you stop requiring those things. You have a choice. You can spend your life trying to manage people's perceptions. Or you can spend your life living your truth. Strong people choose truth. Weak people choose approval. Most people are not judging you as much as you think. And even when they are, their judgment changes nothing. Your goals remain your goals. Your purpose remains your purpose. Your path remains your path. Whether they understand it or not, that's the key. Consider every major decision you've made. There were probably people who disagreed, people who doubted, people who questioned you, people who thought you were making a mistake. And yet life continued. You survived. You learned. You grew. Their understanding was never required. Only your commitment was required. That's a powerful realization. Many people delay their growth because they are waiting for everyone else to understand. They wait for family approval. They wait for friends to agree. They wait for coworkers to support them. They wait for permission. Years pass. Nothing changes. Because the permission never comes. You don't need their permission. You don't need universal understanding. You don't need consensus. You need courage. The courage to move forward without being fully understood. That's the key. Some people will misunderstand your boundaries.
Set them anyway.
Some people will misunderstand your ambition.
Pursue it anyway.
Some people will misunderstand your silence.
Keep your peace anyway.
Some people will misunderstand your growth. Continue growing anyway. Their understanding is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to remain aligned with your values. That's emotional maturity. One of the strongest skills you can develop is becoming comfortable with being misunderstood. Not because you enjoy it, not because it's pleasant, but because it's inevitable. The moment you start thinking differently, some people won't understand. The moment you change your habits, some people won't understand. The moment you refuse to tolerate what you once accepted, some people won't understand. Growth creates distance. Growth creates confusion. Growth creates misunderstanding. And that's okay. That's the price of becoming someone new. Many people return to old behaviors simply because they want to be understood. They abandon boundaries. They abandon goals. They abandon personal growth. All to maintain approval. That is a terrible trade. Never sacrifice your future for temporary acceptance. That's the key. Remember this. People understand things based on their level of awareness, not yours. Someone who fears risk may never understand your ambition. Someone who avoids discipline may never understand your commitment. Someone who fears change may never understand your growth. Their inability to understand does not make your path wrong. It simply means they are viewing life through a different lens. And that's okay. You have a choice. Argue with them, or keep moving. Defend yourself, or keep growing. Seek approval, or seek progress. The strongest people choose progress. Because progress changes lives. Arguments rarely do. It's not about being understood. It's about discipline. The discipline to continue your journey even when nobody applauds. The discipline to trust yourself when others doubt you. The discipline to stay focused while others question your direction. That discipline becomes your foundation. And foundations do not require permission. Foundations simply hold the weight. That's what emotional strength does. It allows you to stand firm when opinions shift. It allows you to remain steady when people misunderstand. It allows you to continue moving without constantly looking for reassurance. Remember this phrase. You do not need to be understood to move forward. Repeat it. You do not need to be understood to move forward. Again. You do not need to be understood to move forward. The moment you accept this truth, a tremendous amount of pressure disappears. You stop explaining every decision. You stop defending every choice. You stop worrying about every opinion. And you begin focusing on what truly matters. Your growth, your purpose, your discipline, your peace. Because peace does not come from everyone understanding you. Peace comes from understanding yourself. That's the key. The strongest people in the world are not the most understood. They are the most committed. Committed to their values. Committed to their purpose. Committed to their growth. Whether others understand or not. You are learning that emotional freedom comes from releasing the need for validation, approval, and understanding. And once you release those needs, something remarkable happens. You stop taking everything personally. You stop reacting to every opinion. You stop carrying emotional burdens that were never yours to carry. And that is the final lesson. The lesson that ties everything together. Peace is one of the most valuable things you will ever possess. Yet most people give it away for free. They give it away to strangers. They give it away to opinions. They give it away to arguments. They give it away to criticism. They give it away to situations they cannot control. And then they wonder why they feel exhausted. That's the key. Your peace is your responsibility. Nobody else can protect it for you. Nobody else can maintain it for you. Nobody else can create it for you. That job belongs to you. Many people believe peace comes from perfect circumstances. They think peace will arrive when problems disappear, when people finally understand them, when everyone agrees with them, when life becomes easier. But peace does not come from controlling the world around you. Peace comes from controlling your response to the world around you. That's the key. There will always be problems. There will always be difficult people. There will always be setbacks. There will always be criticism. If your peace depends on life becoming perfect, you will never experience peace. You have a choice. You can wait for the world to change, or you can change the way you respond to it. Strong people choose the second option. Weak people spend years waiting. One of the biggest threats to peace is unnecessary conflict. Many people feel obligated to participate in every argument, every debate, every disagreement, every piece of drama. But not every battle deserves your attention. Not every problem deserves your energy. Not every opinion deserves your response. That's emotional maturity. Knowing what to ignore. Knowing what to release. Knowing what is not worth carrying. Most people are tired because they carry things that were never theirs to carry. Other people's opinions. Other people's expectations. Other people's judgments. Other people's negativity.
Put it down.
That's the key. You don't need their permission. You don't need their approval. You don't need to win every argument. You don't need to convince every critic. You need peace. And peace requires boundaries. Many people struggle because they never establish boundaries. They allow negativity into their lives. They allow disrespect. They allow constant emotional chaos. Then they wonder why they feel overwhelmed. Boundaries are not selfish. Boundaries are necessary. A boundary says, this behavior is not acceptable. This conversation is not productive. This environment is not healthy. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away. Not because you're weak, because you're wise. That's the key. Protecting your peace often requires saying no. No to distractions. No to drama. No to toxic relationships. No to endless explanations. No to people who only bring chaos into your life. Every time you say yes to unnecessary conflict, you say no to peace. Remember that. Your energy is limited. Your attention is limited. Your time is limited. Spend them wisely. Strong people guard their attention carefully. They understand that what they focus on grows. Focus on problems. Problems grow. Focus on negativity. Negativity grows. Focus on drama. Drama grows. Focus on growth. Growth grows. That's the key. Where attention goes, energy flows. Many people spend hours worrying about things they cannot control. What others think. What others say. What might happen. What happened years ago. All of that steals peace. All of that steals energy. And none of it improves the future. You have a choice. Focus on what you control. Release what you don't. That single habit can transform your life. It's not about control. It's about discipline. The discipline to redirect your attention. The discipline to stop feeding negative thoughts. The discipline to stop replaying painful experiences. The discipline to stop carrying emotional baggage. Every day you wake up with a decision. Will you protect your peace? Or will you surrender it? Most people surrender it without realizing it. A negative comment ruins their mood. A disagreement ruins their day. A setback ruins their week.
Why?
Because they hand their peace to external circumstances. Strong people refuse to do that. They understand that peace is too valuable, too important, too difficult to build, to give away so easily. That's the key. Peace is not weakness. Peace is strength. Anyone can react. Anyone can argue. Anyone can become angry. It takes strength to remain calm. It takes strength to remain focused. It takes strength to walk away from unnecessary conflict. That's real power. Remember this. Not everything deserves your attention. Repeat it. Not everything deserves your attention. Again. Not everything deserves your attention. Some things deserve silence. Some things deserve distance. Some things deserve complete indifference. And that is perfectly okay. The strongest people are not emotionally available to every distraction. They choose carefully where they invest their energy, because they understand a simple truth. Whatever steals your peace steals your power. That's the key. Protect your peace. Protect your focus. Protect your energy. Protect your future. Because every great achievement requires emotional stability. Every meaningful goal requires focus. And focus becomes impossible when your mind is constantly consumed by things that don't matter. You have a choice. Choose peace over drama. Choose growth over arguments. Choose discipline over emotional reactions. Choose focus over distraction. The people who build extraordinary lives are not always the smartest.
They are not always the most talented.
But they are often the most disciplined about protecting their peace. And that discipline changes everything. You have spent this entire journey learning one powerful truth. Most suffering comes from taking things personally. Other people's opinions, other people's criticism, other people's misunderstandings, other people's behavior. None of these things should have the power to control your life. The moment you stop giving them that power, you become free. Free to grow. Free to focus. Free to succeed. Free to live with peace. And that peace is worth protecting at all costs.